Have you ever considered that the greatest architects of your destiny aren't external forces, but the silent, persistent whispers of your own mind? That the boundaries of your potential aren't defined by your circumstances, but by the very thoughts you choose to entertain. It's a profound truth. What you think, you ultimately become. Your self-perception isn't just a fleeting idea. It's the blueprint for your reality. Let me tell you a story about Arthur, a man who once believed his life was etched in stone, a testament to misfortune. For years, Arthur had been a familiar sight on the bustling streets of the city, a fixture on a particular bench near the old clock tower. His worn clothes, weathered face, and the outstretched hand were a daily tableau for countless commuters. He was, to himself and to most others, simply a beggar. His days were a monotonous cycle of hope and disappointment, each coin a momentary reprieve from the gnawing uncertainty of the next meal. Arthur's mind was a well-worn path of self-pity and resignation. He saw himself as helpless, a victim of circumstance, someone who had nothing to offer, and therefore could only receive. This self-perception was a cage, invisible yet unbreakable, trapping him in a cycle of poverty that extended far beyond his empty pockets. It resided deeply within his spirit. He believed his worth was tied to the charity he received, a paltry sum that barely kept him afloat, yet reinforced his conviction that he was a burden, a drain on society. One crisp autumn morning, a kind-faced woman stopped by his bench. Instead of dropping a coin, she sat beside him for a moment, sipping her coffee. "Arthur," she began softly, "do you ever wonder why some people thrive, even with humble beginnings, while others seem stuck?" Arthur merely shrugged, his gaze fixed on the pavement. "It's not just about what you have, she continued, but what do you believe you can give? People, Arthur, fundamentally prefer exchange over mere charity. They want to feel they've received something of value, no matter how small, for what they give." Her words, though gentle, struck Arthur with the force of a thunderclap. Exchange over mere charity. It resonated with a truth he hadn't articulated, but had felt acutely in the subtle awkwardness of receiving. When people gave him money, he often saw pity in their eyes, sometimes even disdain. But what if he could offer something? What could a man with nothing possibly offer? The idea gnawed at him. He spent days observing, truly observing, for the first time in years. He watched street performers, artists, vendors selling trinkets. They weren't begging. They were exchanging. They offered something: entertainment, beauty, a service, and in return, they received money, not as charity, but as compensation for value provided. Arthur began to look at the world differently. He noticed a small patch of wildflowers growing wild and vibrant near the old railway tracks on the edge of town, often overlooked by passers-by. They were simple, yet beautiful, a splash of color against the urban gray. An idea, fragile as a butterfly's wing, began to take shape in his mind. What if he could offer these flowers? The thought was exhilarating and terrifying. He, a beggar, becoming a provider? It seemed absurd, almost arrogant. But the woman's words echoed. What you think, you become. If he continued to think of himself as only a receiver, that's all he would ever be. If he dared to imagine himself as someone who could offer value, even something as simple as a wild flower, what then? The next morning, with a newfound tremor of purpose, Arthur ventured to the railway tracks. He carefully picked a small bouquet of wildflowers, their petals still dewy from the morning mist. His hands, usually outstretched for coins, now cradled these delicate blossoms. He returned to his usual spot by the clock tower, but this time his posture was different. His hand wasn't open, palm up. It held the flowers. His first attempts were clumsy, filled with self-doubt. People walked past, some curious, some dismissive. He stammered, "Flowers for sale? A small exchange for a moment of beauty?" Most ignored him. His old self-perception, the beggar identity, screamed at him to give up, to revert to the familiar comfort of anonymity and passive receiving. But something had shifted. The act of offering, of asterisk providing asterisk, had ignited a spark. Then, a young woman, rushing by with a serious expression, paused. She looked at the simple bouquet, then at Arthur's hopeful, yet nervous, face. A faint smile touched her lips. "How much?" she asked. "Whatever you think they're worth," Arthur replied, his voice a little stronger than he expected. She handed him a few coins, took a single flower, and tucked it behind her ear. "Thank you," she said, genuinely. "They're lovely." That thank you was different. It wasn't pity. It was an acknowledgement of value, an exchange. In that moment, something profound clicked within Arthur. He wasn't just a beggar anymore. He was a vendor. He was a provider. He was, in his own small way, an entrepreneur. The realization wasn't just about the money. It was about the dignity, the respect, the shift in his own self-perception. He had taken the first step, not by asking for charity, but by offering beauty, by understanding the principle of exchange. From that day forward, Arthur's life began to blossom. Much like the flowers he now carefully cultivated, he wasn't simply surviving. He was creating. He was no longer just a figure on a bench. He was a man with a purpose, a man who had recognized his own potential, not in what he lacked, but in what he could give. His story became a living testament to the incredible power of changing one's mindset, of daring to perceive oneself not as a victim, but as a creator of value. He learned that true success isn't just about accumulating wealth, but about recognizing the inherent greatness within and exchanging that greatness with the world.